Hi Pisces, welcome to Eight of Cups Tarot. Welcome to your cards for November. I apologize for the view, guys. I'm not feeling really great. So I didn't want these readings to go out late, in particular for this month, because we have a really interesting full moon coming up on October 31st. So my goal is to kind of get everybody's videos out before then. However, I'm not feeling so great, so cutting corners where I can and trying to stay as efficient as possible. So the good news is that November brings us a little bit of a reprieve. Now, that's not to say that all of November is going to be easy, because like I said, we have this full moon energy, and then we finally start to have some breakthroughs as far as energy goes in the middle of November. We have Mars moving direct in your second house. We have Mercury going direct in your ninth house. So it's going to feel, because all of the personal planets are moving forward finally, like we could start to gain some traction. We start to get clarity. Now, especially for you in the ninth house, I think clarity is going to play a big role. And of course, we're really going to be highlighting this month the fact that Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter are all direct and starting to move forward in November. So again, another theme of movement, change, and transformation. Now that falling in your 11th house, which could really be a very powerful house for manifestation. It also addresses some of your friendships and associations. And it could be a house of kind of lucky breakthroughs. And as Jupiter moves direct, getting ready to set up for a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, or I'm sorry, a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. Saturn-Jupiter, oh my goodness, Mercury retrograde is kind of kicking my ass right now. So yeah, Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in December. So like I've been saying, this is kind of setting the stage for that next big transit, which is a 12th house transit for you. So you might be stepping into some new karmic cycles, 12th house stuff, which I think what you'll find is a strengthening of yourself. And I believe what I'm looking at in these cards is kind of like the process that's going to get you there. Now, you are coming out this month as the King of Air. And I really like this for you because, Pisces, it's kind of highlighting kind of the more logical side of things for you. Now, being a Pisces, you're usually operating from some very deep emotions and instincts and intuition. But I have a feeling that as Venus kind of made its way through Virgo, coming up opposing, you know, your sun or your ascendant or your moon, and I think the whole Virgo-Pisces opposition for a lot of October kind of got you into a very logical mode. And now we have Venus moving through Libra, which is your 8th house, which is going to start giving you a lot of support. A lot of support in the way, and there's an emphasis on your value, your self-esteem, your worth, which always trickles into finances, right? If we're in relationships that we don't feel good about ourselves and our lives, and usually, you know, financial issues will follow, or vice versa, because it's all about balance. So where one area starts to spin out of control, the others tend to follow. And I see I see Pisces, I'm sorry. I see Pisces kind of looking at things from a big picture place, kind of logically starting to put the pieces together. And there might be a little bit of emotional detachment going on. You might be kind of distancing yourself from some of your relationships. And I think it's a lot about discernment this month. I think it's a lot about being very self-aware of where and how you invest your energy. You know, Pisces, you're coming out as a sign of real wisdom. And I think it's a testament to the things that we've gone through, the things that you've gone through 2020, the lessons that you've learned, the journey that you've been on. And I have a feeling in November you start to gain a lot of clarity, which in turn allows you to build a much deeper faith in the universe and how things operate. Now the first two cards out is the Three of Cups and the Child of Cups. So I had to kind of sit on these two cards for a minute and kind of meditate, because they can be deciphered in several different ways. And one of the general feelings I get from these is just a feeling of innocent and pure love, and kind of a nostalgic feeling. And immediately, although not within these two cards, but I did pick up a feeling of kind of reminiscing fondly about the past. Now this could have been going on from like mid-October until now, but I think this is how you're going to kind of start November, in kind of this reflective place. And with the Child of Cups, I get this feeling of gratitude that comes with it. Now, when I clarified this Three of Cups, here's where the past kind of starts to creep in for me. You got the Nine of Cups and the World. Now, the Nine of Cups can talk about your wishes, your wish fulfillment, and the World card does represent an ending. So Three of Cups might be an energy where you are longing to reconcile for a relationship of the past. Doesn't have to be romantic, because honestly, romantic or not, the feeling that I'm getting is very like nostalgic, innocent, kind of platonic love, like kind of reminiscing about somebody that was a soulmate, a really deep friend. And I feel like the relationship is something from the past, and clarifying that is a Nine of Swords. And obviously there's an element here of kind of being haunted by the past, causing a little bit of anxiety, losing sleep. You could be maybe actually having dreams or visions about this person from the past. You might be hearing things about them from other people as well. Three of Cups can be a very social atmosphere. So, you know, maybe there's coworkers or friends that you're hearing different stories from, or you know, just kind of hearing how this person's kind of sinking back into your psyche. And the Nine of Swords does indicate a level of anxiety kind of being brought to the surface at this time. Like I said, right away, I pick up on a feeling of being haunted, maybe lacking some kind of a closure. However, what I don't like about the situation is it's also clarified by the Magician in reverse. Now, when I see a Magician in the reverse, I always immediately jump to manipulation. And the thing is, it doesn't always have to be somebody else. Now, when I look at this, I want to tell you to please beware. Because I think whatever mood you're in, and it's not just that doesn't mean that, you know, it's just a mood, but, you know, it could very well be a transit occurring that's just kind of making you feel things from the past a little bit more. It's Scorpio season. So we're all still doing, you know, the first half of November, we're still in this retrograde for Mars. And so it's still looking at our past, looking at things that are kind of holding us back, and we need to heal these things. And I feel like Pisces, because you're in this kind of tender, nostalgic place for the past, this Magician can also represent you. kind of manipulating the facts, making it seem a little bit better than it actually was. I think we could all relate to that energy when somebody kind of disappears from our life, and after a certain amount of time we start to forget some of the negative things, you know, and we kind of hold them on this pedestal, and we start to compare new people in our lives to those people, those old people, which is, I guess, okay to do, you know, from a standpoint of like making logical decisions. You know, you don't want to continually date the same issues over and over again, or be friends with the same people that kind of have those same issues. And after so much time goes by, Venus going through Libra in your 9th house, any forms of anger or resentment kind of begin to disperse. And whether you realize it or not, it could very well be on a deep psychological kind of subconscious level. It brings back a feeling of that old thing and what it was like and how precious it was, because 9 of Cups to me means that at some point this thing was everything you could have ever asked for. You know, this was the perfect relationship, this was the perfect job, this was the greatest friendship. And so my Pisces had to learn to accept that sometimes even the things that seem so perfect still have endings. But when I see that 9 of Swords next to that World card, it indicates to me that there's still a little bit inside of you that hasn't quite let go. It hasn't quite released this karmic cycle. Whatever you were meant to learn, the lesson has been learned, and you're still kind of holding on. Maybe there's a part of you that's hoping the story isn't quite over yet. There's definitely a feeling of needing some form of closure. And this Child of Cups can be a very new energy. There could be, with the 3 of Cups, maybe you're entering into a new partnership, and suddenly, out of the blue, you start to have memories or feelings or come into contact with this other person from your past. And that could be really confusing. And the Child of Cups tells me that you're in somewhat of a vulnerable space right now, which is why I urge you to be cautious about that Magician in reverse. Now, you're coming out as a King of Air, and there's a lot of air and logical thinking cards in this spread. So we don't want to spend too much time emphasizing, you know, look at this logically, try not to kind of romanticize the situation or make more of it than what it actually was. Try not to sugarcoat any of the reality that you learned in the past. Because when you're in this really soft, tender place, and this one person, this kind of Achilles heel for you, they probably sense the moment your heart starts to soften again. They probably sense your vulnerability, and so it is a good time for them to approach. It is a good time for them to say some sweet words that make you believe that there is hope and there is love. But the overall energy is the Wheel of Fortune. And that tells me that what's supposed to be happening, what the universe is trying to get you to do, is change direction. I get the feeling that there's really nothing new that you're going to learn from this situation. I get the feeling that by all means, if you want to do this again with this person, if you want to ignore the things that you really should have learned in the process, the universe will allow you to do it as many times as you want. It's a wheel. It goes round and round. And like this situation will go round and round. And I think it just becomes a question of how much time and how much energy do you want to give this? Because the outcome of this situation most likely will be another cycle of Five of Cups, another cycle of regret, of loss. Guilt, sorrow, shame. Probably similar to the same things that you've just healed yourself from within this cycle. The universe might be testing you right now, Pisces. They might be testing to see if you're still going to fall for some of those old things. And the King of Air is such a blessing for you this month because it gives you the ability to form those healthy boundaries. Nine of Wands. Because suddenly you remember the struggle that it was to get over this thing. Suddenly you remember the reality of the situation. You remember why it didn't work out to begin with. And so you get to draw a line in the sand. You get to say, no, I don't need to relive this. You get to draw the boundary and stick up for yourself. And I think ultimately that's what the lesson was all about in the first place. Second house transits, Mars going direct, and suddenly you start to see your worth. And you start to realize that there's so much that you have to give. There's so much love within your heart. And that sometimes that lightness within you, Pisces, sometimes you can draw in some shady characters. You could draw in some people that really just want to feed off of your light. And oftentimes they're not people that want to really give back in any way. Underneath that Three of Cups and the Child of Cups is the Beyond Death Life card. Now, these are really beautiful Rumi cards that I absolutely love. And I prefer to kind of read you a short piece of this. So here you are, an old soul at the edge of something you have known, at the cusp of an ending and a beginning. Perhaps you are already in surrender and falling in, or perhaps you are fearful and resisting as you greet your unknown destiny. Yet this moment is happening because your own divine soul has chosen for it to be this way, so that love may grow. There is no punishment in this ending, nor is there anything to fear. There may be pain, there may be grief and loss, and there may be uncertainty and even insecurity. Yet you have a heart big enough to bear such growing pains, and your heart is even big enough to receive the joy that is lying in wait for you as you stumble across her in the course of your clumsy, inspired travels into new life. You can scoop her up in your arms and spin her wildly about as she delights in your embrace, throwing her head back in laughter and her vibrant, contagious laughter, filling you with exquisite ecstasy. Yes, you shall know the truth, the knowledge that the divine is with you, guiding every unfolding moment for your life journey. And no matter how dark it may first appear, the divine is with you in unflinching generosity, with compassion, and with fierce passion for your blossoming into all that you are and that all that you can be. Now that's a particularly powerful card. It's a card number 1, which means I think that some Pisces are really starting to come into themselves. And I like that this card represents you seeing the truth, taking off those rose-colored glasses, maybe toning down that tender heart and looking at things from a different point of view. And they said truth, which is that of the Guardian of Swords. This represents truth. This represents clarity. And I think this means that Pisces, you are in a very powerful state in November because you're starting to see people and situations for what they truly are. This Guardian of Swords might be those people in your life kind of coming back, creeping in from the past, slipping in your DMs, checking in to say hello. And it's not going to take a whole lot of effort for you to kind of see through some of the manipulation. And I'm not really even convinced that this is just one person in your life, Pisces. You might really be in a mode of kind of clearing out maybe groups of friends. You know, maybe those groups you're on Facebook with, you know, like room parents or, you know, PTA, and through all of the ugliness that we've all been forced to witness, it's kind of put you in this place where you think, I don't need this. This isn't serving me. This isn't for my highest good. This isn't a good place for my energy, my time. And I think that logic is serving you so well. And I think there's some kind of a magic potion that you put on people where they have no choice but to reveal themselves for what they truly are, and it makes it so easy for you to walk away. Well, underneath those two cards is the Hierophant and the Six of Cups. So let's talk about the Six of Cups energy, because I still think there's a little bit of a hesitation. There's just like this tiny little bit of resistance for Pisces, because you've come a long way in the spiritual journey. You've started to really realize like the certain roles that people play in your life and understand what it is to be a soulmate. Six of Cups energy. But I still think the truth kind of stings. And I think sometimes when you look at it from an objective and logical standpoint and you say, well, sometimes the truth is that you could really, really love somebody and they could really love and value you. And yet it still ends with somebody getting hurt. And I think there's a point in the human experience where you just have to accept that. And I think the Hierophant is the acceptance. I think the Hierophant is understanding that the universe works in its own mysterious ways. We have these experiences. I think in some ways we lose pieces of ourselves in some people. We pick up some other loose pieces of theirs and take them with us. And so in a way we are still always one. We are all still in that beautiful experience, regardless of how ugly it may have gotten, regardless of the disappointment that comes with it. And I think Six of Cups is this really beautiful feeling. Like you get the acceptance, you feel the acceptance. And the thing is, you don't have to be with this person. You don't have to be in a bad relationship. You don't have to hold yourself back. But you could still always feel that love. You could still always feel that gratitude. And I think that's where the magic really starts to happen. I think when we can reframe the stories in our lives, regardless of how ugly they may have been, and still look at them as a beautiful experience and be grateful for those people for what they did and what they taught you and how strong they made you. I think that's the biggest part of the spiritual evolution. He's just simply grasping that you can love somebody, and it doesn't mean it has to be forever. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 3 days. It could be 45 years. But it comes and it goes, and it's not something to be harnessed or forced. But it is something to be grateful for. Now your challenge card is the Explorer of Pentacles. I'm kind of seeing this as going back to one of the original scenarios, Pisces, is that maybe you have started something else with somebody else. And at this time, this probably feels like a little bit of a minor setback, making it difficult for you to kind of cement this new thing, to sort of start to invest and really explore in this new thing. Maybe some of the wisdom through this kind of trip down memory lane has been that you need to take things slow. You need to really test boundaries. And there's just an energy I feel here for you, Pisces, of just becoming so much stronger in yourself. I don't know why, but I just get this feeling like suddenly the outcomes aren't so important. There's almost this freedom, like suddenly you realize that you don't have to fear friendships or relationships of any sort, because they can kind of do their own thing, they can kind of go through their own cycles, and you know that in the end you will be okay because you are not codependent on any of them. And I think the Explorer of Pentacles along with the King of Air means that you're in a very logical place. As long as you're not in a place of fear, as long as you're willing to move forward, regardless of how slow you feel you need to go. But there is that feeling of deserving. There is that feeling of worthiness. And the Explorer of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles, ultimately is on a search for value, for stability. And so you might be grateful for these past experiences, yet you know that there is something better out there for you. There is something of a better fit, somebody who is more reliable, dependable, loyal. Your likely outcome is a card of Judgment, which is kind of self-explanatory, especially because the overall energy, same thing, same story over here, is the Eight of Swords. And this is kind of talking about like self-imprisonment, and I think the Judgment card is setting yourself free. You know, this old thing, this old relationship, this old stuff that comes back, you may have been carrying this with you for a really long time. Maybe not even realizing how it's kind of kept you, held you back from really, you know, maybe starting new relationships, starting new friendships. And there's an element of real isolation with that Eight of Swords. And maybe you are experiencing some kind of a physical timeout in a way, like some kind of a physical isolation. Maybe you are somebody who has to go under a strict quarantine, or there's travel restrictions, or you're quarantined from work for some reason, and it puts you in this place of some quiet time so that you can kind of become unstuck. And these are logical decisions that you're making to get yourself unstuck. This Judgment card is clarified by the Four of Swords. It's another indication of a separation or a break, kind of cutting maybe a lot of people off in your life. Like I said, I get a feeling like kind of the Hermit card, kind of going within, not being so social, not really wanting to make new connections. But however, it is a very fertile time for you in terms of manifestation, in terms of really understanding how life works and what you want. The Empress is every indication that you are attracting everything that you want at this time. And take note of that if you kind of slipped into a place of missing the old stuff and then suddenly they came back. Take note of how strong your mind is. Because the Hierophant, again, with the Eight of Wands, tells me that you are gaining a lot of spiritual understanding. You are gaining a lot of knowledge at this time. I can think of a better way to kind of summarize in terms this kind of ascension process that you've gone through. And by this, I think it means that you're able to move into actual deeper connections with people on a level that you haven't allowed yourself to in a very long time. And I think Empress with the Eight of Wands is that you're very attractive. And you're going to find people are very attracted to you this month, Pisces. Your energy, your kind of renewed faith. And the Hierophant, the card of Taurus, meaning that somehow there's like this renewed sense of worth, confidence coming through, wisdom to kind of choose yourself. You know, this is where you realize that even if these people are real soulmates, even if you do truly love them, it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice yourself. The Hierophant would never sacrifice themselves. And I think it means you're standing in your strength, in your value, in what you believe in. And not giving your time and energy to people that take advantage of you and people that do not value you. And for anybody that's found themselves in a kind of three-party situation of any sort, I think you're going to realize, you know, you choose yourself. And anybody who's kind of in this area of considering a reconciliation, I think you're going to see the truth with this person. I think you're going to see what the situation truly is. And again, the opportunity is to choose yourself. There's a heavy emphasis on valuing yourself right now. And your oracle card next to the Six of Cups is card number 44, the Thinker. More indication of this kind of airy, intelligent, logic, emotionally detached energy. And I just don't think that Pisces is able to be manipulated at this time. I think that you guys are outsmarting everyone. And that might really be provoking people in your life, because honestly, Pisces, typically what happens with you is people could really push and take advantage of that kind heart, take advantage of your ability to care and nurture and at times sacrifice. And so what happens when after all these years you start doing the math, right? You put a spreadsheet together and you're like, my God, I have spent, 14 weeks listening to my best friend cry over the same guy, and I just have to say enough is enough. It's just kind of looking at it from that logical place. Is this good for me? But is it good for my health? Is it good for my time management? Is it making my life better or easier in any way? It's just really being logical about all of the relationships in your life and deciding what goes and what stays. Your likely outcome, you have the 7 of Pentacles, and I like that. I like that because although it does mean that there may be reassessing, adjustments being made, and I do see it a lot in your investment with other people, your investments and connections to other people. And I think this time is well served to decide what is of quality and what is not. And Pisces, I get the feeling, card number 15, Cow Spirit, the miracles are endless. I get the feeling that you're moving into a rather auspicious and lucky time. Miracles are heading your way. So if you look at this process of kind of going through these connections and relationships, putting up healthy boundaries, understanding how the energy of all of it works, I think the universe is going to have some real cool surprises. And I do think it's heavily in regards to that Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in December. So kind of keep that in mind as you're going through this energy in November. At times it could be tough. At times it could be really emotional. At sometimes you might have to be kind of the bad guy. You might have to say, no, I'm not going to do that for you, or no, this isn't okay, and you might have to block a contact or unfollow a couple of friends. You might have to kind of vote yourself off the school board at some point, and harness in on the things that are worthy of your investment. And I also really do think that with the 6 of Cups and the Hierophant, when you start to sort through the people and connections in your life that are of true value, I think they'll begin to fulfill you in ways they couldn't before. I think before, when your energy was a little bit thin and scattered and you were kind of hanging on to things that were trying to see their way out, I think with the refocusing and the clarity that comes, the relationships that are meaningful to you, the relationships with your kids or your parents or your siblings or your really close friends, or maybe this is a love interest, you start to make space and you start to nurture those positive relationships. And that is also indicative of this card number 15, breaking down to a 6 in the same manner. So Pisces, I get the idea that you truly are surrounded by some real beautiful love in your life. And I think by the end of November, you're going to be really surprised at how abundant you feel, even though you started the month off feeling really a little bit at a loss. All right, Pisces, I am going to leave it there. I do hope that you have a wonderful November. If you don't mind, please hit like, share, subscribe the videos, help grow the community. I am so grateful for the opportunity to do this for you each month, and I will be seeing you mid-month for the love readings. Take care. Bye.